You're a dragon. Be a dragon.
Four words rewired a queen's conscience in a single breath. Olenna Tyrell was not flattering anyone. She was handing Daenerys a permission slip, quiet approval to stop fighting the one instinct every other advisor begged her to bury. Watch an old woman dismantle years of restraint without ever raising her voice, and see why this exact moment built the queen who burned a city. To calculate the atmospheric pressure of this Dragonstone war room, we must understand what each person standing in it has already buried. Daenerys crossed an ocean carrying one private vow. She would never rule the way her father ruled. Around her sit allies who lost everything to one woman. Olenna watched Cersei wipe out her grandchildren, her son, and the future of Highgarden in a single blast of wildfire. Tyrion sits at the table arguing for patience, for siege over slaughter, for a clean throne instead of a burned one. Every voice in the chamber pulls toward caution. Daenerys wants the crown without becoming the kind of ruler who earns it through ash. The pressure is simple. A frightened, grieving old woman is about to tell a hesitant young queen that the very thing she fears in herself is the thing that will save her.
We turn the dragons loose, tens of thousands will die in the firestorm.
Tyrion speaks first, and he speaks for restraint. His caution is not cowardice. Buried under it is a man who has watched fire and cruelty define his entire family, and who wants to prove a ruler can win without becoming the thing he fled from. He offers Daenerys a path that keeps her hands clean. For most of this scene, that path is still open, and the queen is still walking it. Yet the most dangerous person in the room is not arguing strategy at all. Olenna holds something Tyrion cannot. Her armies are smaller than the room pretends, but her status is enormous. Daenerys has spent her life surrounded by men who wanted to use her, marry her, or sell her, and she has learned to read the price tag behind every kind word. Olenna seems to carry no price tag. She is one of the rare figures in Westeros who appears to want nothing, with a lifetime of survival sitting behind every word she speaks. That combination flips a hidden switch in how the queen processes advice. Authority bias. The tendency to weigh a message more heavily because of who delivers it, rather than what it actually contains. When the messenger has outlived kings, the mind stops auditing the message. Daenerys scrutinizes Tyrion because he serves her and needs her, and every sentence he speaks carries the weight of his own survival. Olenna seems to stand outside that game completely, which means her words slide in without inspection. An unguarded mind is exactly where the most dangerous ideas walk in, wearing no disguise at all. Then the queen names her own cage out loud.
I am not here to be queen of the ashes.
Underneath that line sits the deepest fear she owns. She is not afraid of losing. She is afraid of winning the wrong way and waking up as her father, the king who wanted to burn his own city to ash. The vow protects her. It also limits her. And Olenna has been listening to every word, measuring exactly where the young queen's restraint is anchored, because the anchor is the thing she means to cut.
Commoners, nobles, they're all just children, really. They won't obey you unless they fear you.
Here is the first crack. Olenna is not arguing strategy. She is rewriting the moral frame of the entire conversation. Fear stops being a sin in this sentence and becomes a tool of good government. Notice she never once tells Daenerys to be cruel. She redefines cruelty as competence, slipping the idea past the queen's guard while it still sounds like patience and wisdom. Framing effect. How the same fact changes meaning depending on the words wrapped around it. A cruel order becomes a duty. The burning of a city becomes a lesson the small folk apparently needed. Dressed in the language of governance, the worst impulse arrives looking like responsibility, and a ruler can embrace it while still believing she rejected cruelty. Then she presses the bruise directly.
Then how do you mean to take the Iron Throne? By asking nicely?
Mockery does the work that argument could not. Olenna frames restraint as naivety, as a child's plan, recasting the queen's careful siege into weakness, dressed up in good intentions. Beneath the sarcasm is a woman who once believed in playing the game gently and lost her whole bloodline for it. The sarcasm carries no real insult. Under it sits a warning, delivered in the only currency the old woman has left. Bitterness earned at the highest possible cost. Here the real machinery turns. Daenerys already wants to unleash her dragons. The desire was never the problem. The problem was permission. She had denied herself the act because every trusted voice told her that giving in would make her a monster, and she had built an entire identity around proving those voices wrong. Moral licensing, the mental loophole where approval from a respected source makes a person feel entitled to do the very thing they had been resisting. What Olenna provides was never a new idea, because the idea was already burning. She provides the signature at the bottom of the page, the external blessing that converts a private hunger into a justified choice. A craving fought alone feels like guilt. The same craving, once approved by someone admired, begins to feel like strategy. Resisting a desire in solitude is exhausting, and the mind hunts constantly for one trusted voice that will end the argument. Olenna ends it. From here on, every burst of dragonfire can be quietly filed under permission already granted.
I've known a great many clever men. I've outlived them all.
Olenna is targeting Tyrion without naming him, and she knows the Queen is listening. In her telling, the clever men are the cautious men, and the survivors are the ones who stopped listening to caution. She offers her own long life as proof that restraint kills and boldness endures. It is a beautiful lie. Her grandchildren followed cleverness and patience too, and they are the ones in the ground. What she leaves out is that boldness did not save her line either. Her family fell because they trusted the wrong allies and underestimated Cersei, never because they were too gentle. The advice rests on a misreading of her own grief, which makes it no less persuasive in the moment it is spoken. Each line strips away another restraint the Queen had placed on herself. The wildfire fear, the Queen of Ashes vow, the trust and patient counsel. One by one, Olenna loosens them. Behavioral disinhibition, the gradual removal of the internal brakes that normally stop a person from acting on a destructive impulse. The brakes were never installed by enemies. Daenerys built them herself, out of fear of what she might become. Olenna does not break them by force. She convinces the Queen that the brakes were the flaw all along, and a person who believes their own restraint is a weakness will dismantle it gladly, without anyone needing to lift a finger. This is how the most effective manipulation works. It never plants a foreign desire. It simply clears away the guard standing in front of a desire that already lived there, then steps back and lets the prisoner walk out under her own power, certain the choice was hers alone. There is a second layer running underneath the mentorship, colder than counsel, and it has nothing to do with helping the young queen at all. Olenna cannot destroy Cersei herself. Her armies are spent, her family is gone, and her own death is already close. So she aims a different weapon at the throne, one that does not need her to be alive to fire. Surrogate vengeance, redirecting a personal need for revenge through another person powerful enough to carry it out after one is gone. The advice is sincere and self-serving at the same time. Olenna truly believes boldness will win. She also knows that a fully unleashed Daenerys is the most likely force in the world to reduce Cersei's capital to rubble. She is loading the dragon and aiming it at the enemy she could never reach with her own hands. Her revenge will outlive her body by riding inside someone else's choices. There is something almost surgical in the timing. She delivers the push, then dies within days, placing herself forever beyond blame. Whatever the dragon does next will belong to the dragon, while the architect rests quietly in her grave, her fingerprints already burned away by the very fire she lit. Then comes the moment everything has been building toward.
The lords of Westeros are sheep. Are you a sheep? No.
The question is a trap with only one acceptable answer, and Daenerys walks into it willingly. Saying yes would mean admitting she is ordinary, one more sheep in a kingdom of sheep. To say no is to accept the role Olenna has spent the entire conversation preparing. The Queen does not merely agree with advice here. She accepts an identity handed to her by someone she trusts, and an identity is far harder to argue with than a plan. What looks like simple agreement is really a surrender of the question itself. Identity foreclosure. Locking onto a self-image given by an authority figure without ever testing whether it truly fits. A dragon does not weigh civilian casualties. It does not negotiate or hesitate. By naming Daenerys a dragon, Olenna hands her a label that quietly excuses every future act of fire. The Queen stops asking whether overwhelming force is wrong and starts asking only whether it is dragon-like. Labels do quiet work. A person measuring every act against right and wrong moves slowly and second guesses. One measuring every act against an identity moves fast, because the only test left is whether the action fits the role. The moral question dies the instant the identity is accepted.
You're a dragon. Be a dragon.
The line lands like a blessing and works like a fuse. Olenna turns and walks out, dead within days, but the instruction stays alive inside the woman she spoke it to. 2 episodes later, the dragons fly over the loot train. Seasons after that, King's Landing burns with the bells still ringing, and the city becomes the ash the Queen once swore she would never rule. By the time it falls, almost no one will remember that the order traces back to 4 quiet words spoken by a dying woman at a war table. But here is what the show never told you. In the novels, Olenna already has blood on her hands, and it belongs to a king she judged too cruel to live. She was the hand behind the poison that ended a young tyrant at his own wedding feast. The venom slipped from a jewel in a girl's hair, because she refused to let her granddaughter belong to a savage ruler. The same woman who once killed a king for his cruelty now sits across from a young queen and coaxes her toward becoming the very thing she once found unforgivable. On the page, she is a destroyer of monsters. The screen quietly turns her into the maker of one, and that reversal bends her final words from gentle advice into something far closer to prophecy. The pattern outside of fiction is quieter and far more common. The person who changes a life most is rarely the one issuing warnings. It is the trusted elder, the admired mentor, the figure who seems to want nothing, the voice that grants permission for a desire already sitting in the chest. Caution arrives loud and gets resisted on principle. Approval arrives gentle and gets absorbed without a fight. A single sentence from someone respected can outweigh years of careful self-control, precisely because it never feels like pressure. It feels like being finally understood. The voice worth fearing is the one that agrees with the part of a person they were trying to keep in check, because that agreement moves people further than any threat ever could. A warning is easy to refuse, since it asks a person to be less than they already are. Permission is almost impossible to refuse, since it offers them more. So the real question is this: did Olenna see the Mad Queen coming and aim her at Cersei on purpose? Or did she simply hand a grieving girl the one terrible push that broke her? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next.